You are scrolling through Instagram. Someone you went to school with just bought a house. Someone else is on a beach in Bali. Another person got promoted. And without even deciding to, your brain has already started running the numbers. Their life versus yours. Their progress versus yours. Their happiness versus yours. You did not choose to do that. It happened automatically. And the worst part is that, comparing yourself to others is irrational. Their highlight reel is not their real life. Comparison is the thief of joy. You have heard it 100 times. And it does not help. At all. Because this is not a habit you can just decide to stop. It is not a mindset problem. It is not a character flaw. It is a biological drive so deeply embedded in your neural architecture that it was running long before social media existed, long before cities existed, long before you were born. And once you understand where it actually comes from, you will finally understand why telling yourself to stop comparing never works. This is the psychology of social comparison, and it goes much deeper than you think. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger at MIT proposed something called social comparison theory. His idea was simple and devastating. Human beings do not have an internal, objective way to measure their own abilities, intelligence, or worth. We have no absolute scale. So instead, we do the only thing we can. We look at other people and use them as the measuring stick. This is not vanity. This is not insecurity. This is your brain solving a genuinely hard problem with the only tool it has. You need to know where you stand. And the only way to know where you stand is to look at where everyone else is standing. Festinger found that we do not compare ourselves to everyone equally. We use what he called similar others, people who are close to us in age, background, situation, or ambition. You do not compare yourself to a billionaire and feel bad. The gap is too large. Your brain dismisses it as irrelevant. But your colleague who started the same year as you and just got promoted, that comparison lands hard. Because the gap is small enough to feel meaningful and large enough to sting. Your brain is not being cruel. It is being precise. But here is where it gets more interesting. Festinger identified two directions comparison can go. Upward comparison, looking at people doing better than you, and downward comparison, looking at people doing worse. And your brain uses both strategically depending on what it needs in that moment. When you need motivation, upward comparison can drive you. Seeing someone achieve what you want can make the goal feel real and reachable. When you need comfort after a failure, downward comparison provides relief. You look at someone struggling more than you and feel slightly better about your situation. The problem is that modern life has broken this system completely. Social media has replaced your tribe of 50 with an audience of billions. Your brain was built to compare itself to the 20 or 30 people in your immediate social environment. People you saw every day. People whose full lives you knew. Their failures, their struggles, their bad days, as well as their good ones. That context made comparison relatively accurate. Now your brain is running the same comparison program, but feeding it a completely artificial dataset. You are not comparing yourself to people whose full lives you know. You are comparing yourself to the best moments of millions of strangers. Every upward comparison all day with no downward comparison to balance it. No context, no full picture, just an endless stream of people appearing to do better than you in every possible domain simultaneously. Your brain cannot process that without cost. Neuroscientist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan studied what happens in the brain during social comparison on social media. His research showed that passive social media consumption, scrolling without interacting, triggers activity in the brain's threat detection system. Your brain is not just noticing information, it is registering a potential status threat. Every image of someone doing better than you activates the same neural pathways as a social threat, the same system your ancestors used to monitor their standing in the tribe. And status in the tribe was not trivial. Low status in an ancestral community meant less access to food, to mates, to protection. It was a survival issue. So your brain treats perceived status loss with the same urgency as a physical threat. The anxiety you feel after scrolling is not weakness or vanity. It is a survival alarm misfiring in a world it was not designed for. But there is something even more specific happening underneath all of this. Psychologist Thomas Mussweiler at the University of Cologne found that social comparison is not just an emotional reaction, it is a cognitive process. A rapid, automatic search your brain runs every time it encounters information about another person. Within milliseconds of seeing someone else's achievement, your brain has already asked, how does this relate to me? Is this person similar enough to be a relevant comparison? And if yes, am I above or below them? This search happens before you are aware of it, before you have consciously decided to compare. The comparison is already done by the time you notice the feeling it produced. That is why simply deciding not to compare does not work. The decision comes too late. The comparison already happened. What you are really trying to stop is not the comparison itself, but the emotional spiral that follows it. And there is one more layer that most people never think about. The comparisons that hurt the most are almost never about the thing on the surface. The person who got promoted is not just a person who got promoted. They are evidence that something is possible and that you have not done it yet. The friend who got married is not just a friend who got married. They are a data point that your brain is using to assess your own timeline, your own value, your own progress against an internal scorecard you may not even be fully aware of. Every painful comparison points to something you want, something you care about, something that matters to you, and that is actually important information. Psychologist Shelly Taylor at UCLA developed something called the self-evaluation maintenance model. The idea that we feel most threatened by comparisons in domains that are central to our identity. If you do not care about money, seeing a wealthy person does not sting. If you care deeply about your career, seeing a peer succeed in their career cuts deep. The more the comparison touches something you have defined yourself by, the more it hurts. Which means that the comparisons that are destroying you are actually a map of your own values. They are showing you what you want, what you have told yourself matters, what you are afraid of failing at. So what do you do with all of this? The first thing is to stop trying to stop comparing. You cannot. The system runs automatically. What you can do is catch the moment after the comparison fires and ask a different question. Instead of asking, am I behind? Ask, what is this comparison telling me about what I want? Use it as information rather than as a verdict. The second thing is to deliberately consume more complete pictures of people's lives, not just their highlights. Seek out conversations where people talk about their failures, their doubts, their bad days. Your brain needs full information to make accurate comparisons. Right now, it is working with incomplete data and reaching catastrophic conclusions. The third thing is to shift from social comparison to temporal comparison. Instead of measuring yourself against other people, measure yourself against the person you were a year ago, 6 months ago, last month. That is a comparison your brain can actually learn something useful from. Because that gap, the gap between who you were and who you are becoming, is the only gap that is fully within your control. You are going to compare yourself to other people for the rest of your life. Your brain will not stop running that program, but you can change what you do with the output. You can stop treating every comparison as a verdict and start treating it as a signal that tells you what you want, what you value, what direction you are actually trying to move in. And that is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to pay attention to.